This is our second video in bringing together Flask and SQLAlchemy, and we will be inserting into a table that has a foreign key. So a reminder of where we were. We have several Python files here. The first one is sort of purely SQLAlchemy and is defining the database. We have painters, which have last name, first name, various properties, and a primary key, and a relationship to painting. We have a painting class and a painting entity, which corresponds to a paintings table. And the paintings have titles and file names, and they have a foreign key, which connects them back to the painters. So the foreign key in the painting table is the primary key in the painters table. And this file is just one of definitions. Then I have a file for populating. So I have some data in a JSON file on some painters, and I've read the JSON file, parsed it, and populated my two tables. And I've talked about that before, and I have run it. And so I have my painters and paintings. Down here, we can see I have sort of restarted. So I think the last time I added Edgar Degas, and he's gone, so I will have to re-add him. But that's what populate did. Just put data in there. I previously had populate and queries together and decided that they were better separated. So here is my queries Python file. So if I run that, I have a bunch of queries, and the last one says who are all the painters in the database and how many paintings do they have. So that'll be convenient to test as we insert that artists are added, paintings are added. Then next, I'm going to jump over to the WTF Python. And what we had done previously was we had this artist form. So it has places, it's using Flask and WT forms, and has place to enter the last name, first name, country, birth date, death date of the artist, and a submit button. I'm adding now a second form, which will correspond to a second page, another route, and it is the painting form. So I have a place to enter a title, which is a string field. I'll say it's got to be between 2 and 60 characters, a file name, and then I'm going to connect to, I'm going to have a field to connect to painter. And I'm not querying the database here, so I don't know. That's all I have here. So I don't know what I'm putting in there. I'm just, at this stage, just announcing. So I'm used to, like, we see the choices here in this sort of form Python, but I'm not connecting to the database here. So I don't know who the painters are until I'll go over to the routing form, and it's the routing form that I'm going to have connect to the database, and then it will get populated then. So the choices, no choices at this stage, choices added later. So let's pop over to the routes. Now the routes has got to do the normal routing and know about the forms, but it's also got to know about the database, because this is where we're going to insert, but also where we're going to populate the list of artists to act as the foreign keys for the painting table. So the default route directed over to the artist form, so that will be considered the primary form that people will end up at. And we've talked about this one before. Sort of the user enters the data, it comes in, and we use the painter constructor from I've imported. Every time you see my_DB, that's where I've imported the definitions from the app art define. So I get the painter constructor from my DB and load up all the information and add the painter and commit. And then I moved over to a handler which just displayed the information. And here I am making tuples. So I'm going to query the painter table. So session query my DB painter. I'm querying getting all the painters. And I'm going to sort of loop through those results and make the list of tuples that will serve as my choices for the artists in the painting table. So so item is artist list is the result of the query, and I'm looping over it. Loop artist choices is going to be my list of tuples. I start off with an empty list because I want to make a tuple, but I can't. Tuples are not, I can't change a tuple. They're immutable, so I have to make a list, put what I want in it, and then cast it as a tuple. So I'm adding the artist ID when I make choices. That there are two parts of the tuple, and the first part is what I want to pass behind the scenes, which is the artist ID. And then the second one is what I want the user to see, and that's going to be the last name, comma, first name of the artist. I cast that as a tuple. I add it to my list. I'm printing it out just to sort of see it down in the terminal, and then I'm done there. Okay, so then I go over to the painting table. So again, it has to know about the painting form from my WTF file. Now I'm announcing that my choices for the painter ID come from the artist choices that I made above. And then here we go. So if it is, I changed it from validate. I go back and forth. I keep is submitted and validate sort of both in play because sometimes I stumble over validation. But right now I have valid, which is the superior one, sort of is the one that's actually being run. But again, I'm handling the form, the title comes over, the file name comes over. I'm using the constructor from my database to make a painting. I have my result, which is what came over from the form. It was that it'll be a drop-down list. What comes over is the painter ID, which I set as the painting ID. I add that and commit that. And then I move over to some painting handler. Otherwise, I move to the painting form. And then the HTMLs are pretty obvious. The paint, we saw previously the artist form and the artist form handler, the painting form, place to enter the title, place to enter the name, the file name, and place to enter the painter ID. That will be a drop-down select. And then the painting form handler will just sort of echo out, here's the title, here's the file name, here was the painter ID. Okay, so let's run this guy. So let's re-add Edgar Degas, and let's see if he then appears on our list or not. So I want to run the routes, and then the route for paintings is painting_form. I will be led first to the artist table, and then if we need to get to the paintings, we know how to reroute ourselves. Control click, I'm bringing up. Here I'm going to add the artist. It's remembering from before, there's Degas. Let me change this to 7. I think that's how I had the dates in. So there is adding Degas. Okay, I forgot I had done that. In the simple layout, I've added some navigation to move from the two painters. So there we've successfully added Edgar Degas. Now let's see if we go over to, well, this says add painter. It probably should say add painting. Yes, it should have said add painting. And now I have, and I have some default things, default.jpg, untitled, painting, and drop down list. Edgar Degas has not made it into my list, so I need to do a little bit more work. But let's add a painting of one of the other artists. So let's add a Whistler painting. Let me find a Whistler painting. I don't know if I have Whistler's Mother in there. So paintings, Whistler should be at the bottom. Arrangement in gray, that's Whistler's Mother. So we have Whistler's Mother. Now there's a mountain. James Abbott, McNeil Whistler. All right, let's go for this blue one, Nocturne, blue and silver. We'll add that. So Nocturne and silver. Spell. What would I call that? Nocturne blue, if I had the JPEG, and that was by Whistler, insert painting. Okay, so it was, here's the handler, it's saying, here's the file name, here's the title, it was artist number 5, and that's what we wanted to show to add the, let me go back to that. Again, the idea here was that we are adding to a table, adding records to a table which has a foreign key. So we are getting the list of primary keys. They're hidden. If we look at view the page behind, and we look at that drop down, we see the values are 1 for Manet, 2 for Seurat. So we are getting their values. But my shortcoming here is that I do not have my new artist, Degas. So that's what I have for now. Thanks for your attention.